What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Okay, I want to start off with this bit of nonsense, if you will. Check this out. Judge orders Trump administration to tell fired workers they were not let go for poor performance. Are you kidding me on this one? Check it out. Watch. This is a segment. I'm not covering this. I just wanted to point out this. This is ridiculous, y'all. They get a participation trophy, guys. Termination under the false pretense of performance is an injury that will persist for the working life of each civil servant, wrote Alsop in Friday's order. The stain created by the OPM's pretense will follow each employee through their careers and will limit their professional opportunities. So, yes. So what? Like, are you kidding me on this one? This is a San Francisco district judge, by the way. And I just thought that was insanely hilarious. That they are going to tell these people, no, you must tell them that they weren't doing a bad job. Like, does that matter? Will that really follow them throughout their career? Any firing is going to follow them through their career. It is up to the person. Even if you tell them it wasn't because you were performing poorly. It doesn't matter. The sensibilities of snowflakes in this country are beyond belief. Let's get into the real news, as a matter of fact. Appeals court pauses for now contempt proposal by trial judge. So Boasberg has lost his freaking mind. A federal appeals court on Friday night put off, for the moment, a plan by a trial judge to open contempt proceedings to determine whether the Trump administration had violated an order he issued last month stopping flights of Venezuelan migrants from being sent to El Salvador under a powerful wartime statute. Wartime statute, as we've covered over several videos. Yeah, they call it a wartime statute, but yes, it's partially for wartime statute, but it is meant for also predatory incursions. Once again, like I was talking about in my last video, if you haven't seen it, go see it. It's, Piers Morgan debate. I basically postulated that, hang on just a second, like the Supreme Court pretty much canceling that part of the Constitution, and that is part of the Constitution, the Alien Enemies Act is part of the Constitution, altering it. They're essentially legislating. That's what they're doing here by saying, no, you can't just deport these people without due process. They need a habeas hearing. Well, that just resorts that back to any other deportation. That makes no sense. So now, basically, if Nicaragua, for some reason, decides to invade the United States, every single invading soldier will now have to go through a deportation hearing, as a matter of fact. They have to get their habeas hearings. Like, it's insane. It really is. And I didn't realize this at first until I thought about it for a second. Like, hang on. This wartime, it's meant for invading forces and predatory incursions. These gangs entered the country illegally, just like an invading force would. They're canceling the wartime powers of the President of the United States by doing this. This is one of the most insane rulings from the Supreme Court I think I've ever seen. Absolutely. Now, and even in this one, we'll get into this. We'll get into my thoughts, what I was about to say next. Because we need to read the news first, right? I can't just rant on about this forever, can I? I don't know. Y'all let me know down in the comments. In a single-page order, a 3-judge panel of the U.S. Supreme Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia said that it was entering what is known as an administrative stay to give itself more time to consider the validity of the contempt proposal by the trial judge, James E. Boasberg. On Wednesday, Judge Boasberg, concerned that the White House had ignored his order to pause all deportation flights heading to El Salvador under the wartime law known as the Alien Enemies Act, gave Trump officials a choice. He said they could provide the men who were sent without hearings to El Salvador the due process they had been denied, or they could face a searching contempt investigation into who among them was responsible for having not complied with his directives. This is basically an impossibility. So what they are asking essentially is the Trump administration to give people that are in the custody of El Salvador, who are sitting in a prison in El Salvador currently, to give them due process hearings. How are they supposed to do that without El Salvador relinquishing custody of terrorists to come back to the United States so they can go through a court system? How are they supposed to do that? That is an impossibility. That is like a judge telling you to go and jump off the top of the building. If you do not go jump off the top of the building, then you will be found in contempt of court. That is essentially what they are doing. What are you supposed to do about that? It is absolutely insane. In court papers filed on Friday morning, lawyers for the Justice Department told the appeals court that neither option was acceptable. The lawyers accused Judge Boasberg of overstepping his authority by seeking, on the one hand, to tell the Trump administration how to conduct foreign policy, and on the other, to effectively try to assume the role of an investigating prosecutor. Yep. The appeals court made clear that it was not ruling on the merits of the Justice Department's accusations. The panel simply wanted additional time to consider the complexities of Judge Boasberg's plan. That plan, laid out in an order this week, suggested that the judge was trying to pin down who the administration was behind what he called the willful disregard of his oral instructions issued during a hearing on March 15th. Speaking from the bench that day, he said any deportation flights headed to El Salvador under the Alien Enemies Act needed to be halted at once, and that any planes already in the air should turn around. But that did not happen, leaving nearly 140 Venezuelan migrants in the custody of jailers at a notorious Salvadorian prison known as the Terrorist Confinement Center, or CECOT. Judge Boasberg's proposal for the contempt proceedings explained in detail the increasingly painful measures the administration might face if it did not provide due process to the Venezuelan men. The judge said it would begin with sworn declarations and then move on, if needed, to courtroom testimony under oath. If he still could not determine who had given the directions to disobey his order, he said he would refer the case to the Justice Department for criminal prosecution. Good luck with that. Aware that the department under Mr. Trump's control would not be likely to file charges, Judge Boasberg said he would play a final card, a special provision of the criminal contempt law that would in effect allow him to appoint an outside prosecutor. Basically just getting some random person off the street to prosecute the federal government. The Justice Department seemed particularly outraged that Judge Boasberg was considering appointing an outside prosecutor to pursue criminal charges against administration officials, if indeed a case was warranted and the department itself refused to bring it. Which it would, absolutely. The federal rules of criminal procedure say that in instances of criminal contempt, courts must first ask an attorney for the government to prosecute. But if the government declines the request, the rules maintain the court must appoint another attorney to prosecute the contempt. The Justice Department sought to push back on the idea that Judge Boasberg could find his own prosecutor to go after people inside the White House. District courts cannot outsource prosecutorial power to private citizens, department lawyers told the appeals court. Insulate them from executive branch control and then unleash them against the executive branch, like I was saying. The appeals court, looking forward, asked the Justice Department and lawyers for the Venezuelan men to file additional papers about the proposed contempt proceedings next week. Alan Fuhrer covers extremism and political violence for the Times, focusing on the criminal cases involving January 6th attack on the Capitol against former President Donald J. Trump. Now, that is obviously the prosecutor that Judge Boasberg would get to prosecute the federal government. And once again, this question is proposed by all this. Okay, so let's say he gets this Alan Fuhrer guy to prosecute the federal government. Okay, and it goes to court, it finds out, oh, hang on, they were in contempt. What are you going to do about it, Judge? Once again, that's what I bring it back to. What's the end result? What's the end game? Is there an off-ramp here? Is there going to be an opportunity for the administration to actually get a fair hearing? Because you have obviously a conflicted attorney and a conflicted judge trying to prosecute against the administration that was carrying out its duties under the Constitution. Because once again, the Alien Enemies Act allows the administration to deport terrorists without due process. That is the entire point of the Alien Enemies Act. And once again, so the whole fact that this judge said, stop, you can't do that, is irrelevant. The Supreme Court even found that this judge did not have the authority to carry out that order. As a matter of fact, because this venue should have been in the district where the criminal aliens were being stored, or whatever, their detention center or whatever. That's where this should have been, nullifying all of this. However, Judge Boasberg has said, since the Supreme Court said it's okay. But that's not what they said, is it? They said that he didn't have any power behind this. There was no power. So now Boasberg is going after another aspect of this because the administration was in contempt of an illegal order. We have a judicial coup in this country, folks, and I've been saying this for a little while now, and this pretty much proves it. Even though the Supreme Court removed this case from this district, this judge is still going after the administration and is willing to elicit the help of private citizens. Get this, folks, private citizens, to try to prosecute the federal government, because he knows damn good and well the government is not going to prosecute itself because it felt like it was carrying out its duties under the Constitution. Where's the prosecutorial discretion on this? This is all very, very fascinating in my opinion, and I cannot wait to see the end result of all this. I'm kind of, pretty much in aligned with the Trump administration on this specifically, that, yes, there needs to be some sort of allocation for the federal government to be able to remove grave threats to this country under some sort of Alien Enemies Act, as a matter of fact, to get rid of these threats. Once again, like I was talking about at the beginning of this video, if you have an invading force currently now under the precedent that's been set, now obviously it would have to be overturned. But that means it would have to go to a court to be overturned. So obviously you have an invading force come in. Now they're going to have their due process rights. Essentially. If the invading force, invades and then just hides themselves as citizens, now if the army goes and rounds these people up, are they even allowed to go and round these people up? Apparently not, folks. Apparently it would have to be ICE. And if ICE goes and rounds these people up, they can't just get rid of them. They absolutely can't. None of this makes any sense. This is the most absurd ruling, like I said, from the Supreme Court. It is all absurd, in my opinion. And yes, I am framing this how I see it. And I'm a biased guy, sure. But I'm trying to be fair on this one, because we need something like the Alien Enemies Act, once again. Because what do you do? What do you do when you have threats to this nation? Like, seriously, are we expecting a police officer not to arrest criminals? Are we to have these people, we got to go to court first to make sure that these people can be arrested? That's what they're basically doing here. That's how I see it, at least. Oh, we need to go to court. Got to go to court for everything. Everything needs a freaking due process right. No, I'm sorry. If you enter this country illegally without authorization, you enter the country without due process, you are not afforded the rights of due process upon your exit. None of this makes any sense to me, folks, but if you guys have an argument for the comment section, please make it make sense to me. And that's it. That's all I got on this one. I want y'all to let me know what y'all think. And y'all try to have a good day. Stay legitical. Peace. I screwed it up on purpose.